Thank you, Nick. Hey, hello, UPS. Boy, y'all are a fired up bunch. I'll tell you what, I observed out in the foyer a while ago. Y'all are so fired up, and I could feel the energy, and then you're already laughing. I like that part very much. As Nick said, I am Terry Sumerlin. What's your name? I guess we don't have time for all that. I am the barberosopher. Now, I don't know if that means anything to you folks or not. In fact, let me get kind of a read on the group, if I may, just to start with. Before I just now mentioned the word barberosopher, let's see a show of hands. How many of you either had or had not ever heard that word before? Okay, I think that's just about everybody. I am a licensed barber. I've had a Texas barber license since I was 16 years old and owned a 50-year-old barber shop in a suburb of San Antonio known as Alamo Heights. Anyone here ever been to Alamo Heights? Okay, yeah, all right, good. I sold my barber shop last July and we moved to the big city of Lavon, Texas. Now, you're probably wondering why. But in addition to the fact that we like the quiet atmosphere, our daughter and her husband and 2 little granddaughters live in Rockwall. That explain that? So there's a lot of incentive. I said I was a barber. I'm still a licensed barber. Now, I'm not a mind reader, but I have an idea what you might be thinking as I say I'm a barber, right? Don't get ahead of me now. I used to have customers that would come in the barber shop for the first time and they would look at me and say, "You're not going to cut my hair like yours, are you?" But as odd as it might seem, I was a barber. Actually, it gets stranger than that. Before I was a barber, I was a Rogaine salesman. You don't believe that, do you? I'm the barberosopher, the barber philosopher. I like to say that in the barber shop you hear lots of stories. Some are true and some are even repeatable. And based upon some of those stories and lots of life experiences and the fact that I'm a voracious reader, I've developed a philosophy of life and business lessons called barberosophy. Just common sense life and business principles, primarily for successful leaders. I want to share a statistic with you. I ran across this not too long ago. I heard that 1 out of every 3 individuals is incredibly handsome or amazingly beautiful. Let's see how that works out in here. Everyone look to your left. Now look to your right. And if it's not either one of them, it's probably you, okay? Let me give you another statistic. By the way, did you know that 37.5% of all statistics are made up on the spot? So I made up this one. 100% of what I'm going to be talking about in the next few minutes is just common sense. I like to say that there's not anyone going to leave at the end of my presentation saying, "Wow, that guy's really smart. In fact, he's so smart I didn't understand half what he was talking about." I've never been accused of that. I just believe that effective communication is not the giving out of information. It's the response when you get through, when people say, "Yeah, me too." Barberosophy is common sense. It's nothing new. It's not going to be surprising what I'm going to be talking about, but it'll be a gentle kick on the shin to all of us to encourage us to go on and do the things we know we ought to be doing, do them even more and do them even better in terms of sales, in terms of service. Now, I want to say something right here to give you permission to do something. If I slack off in the least bit, and that is, since I have a barber background and I've never worked a day with UPS, I want to give you permission to do this. And that is, if as I'm speaking on common sense principles with reference to sales and service, if at any point you detect that I don't know what I'm talking about as it relates to your industry and to your business, you go right ahead and say, "Yeah, right." Okay? We got a deal? Okay. I want to talk about three things that have to do with sales and service. And the first of these is communication. That surprised you, right? No, not really. Communication is so pivotal to everything that we do in life. I think sometimes that we assume that we communicate effectively. You know, we start talking at 1.5 years, 2 years old, and we just go through the rest of our life under normal circumstances talking, right, Nick? And we just figure from that we're communicating. That's not necessarily true. Someone has said that words are vehicles upon which thoughts travel. If that's the case, I don't know about you, but I find that quite often I put the wrong passenger on the bus. Because my wife doesn't always understand clearly what it is I'm trying to communicate to her. Y'all ever experience that kind of thing in your house? I want to tell you, last July, my sweet wife Sherry and I celebrated our 50th wedding anniversary. No. Now, I misled you just a little bit. We've only been married 45 years in July, but we'd heard so much about that 50th anniversary. We just couldn't wait. We decided to go ahead and celebrate it in advance. I want to tell you, we had one more celebration too. We went on a cruise and everything. We had such a good time, we may do it again this year. Now, I told that for a couple of reasons. One is, and I'm going to get to this, part of communication is listening. I set you up in the telling of that for you to misunderstand. But in the communicative process, there are two necessary elements, and that is a sender and a receiver. And both of those have to be working extremely well. Now, in the sending mode, words are incredibly important. My wife Sherry and I would not even have been married 45 years if somewhere during all those years, one or the other of us didn't say something in just the right way with just the right words. Don't you think so? Words matter. How we string words together matters a lot. Suppose I were to tell Sherry, "Sweetheart, you look like the breath of spring." Don't you think she'd like that? Suppose I changed the wording just a little bit and said, "Sweetheart, you look like the end of a long, hard winter." Now think about it just a minute. Doesn't spring come at the end of a long, hard winter? Usually, but that's not the same thing. It doesn't have the same impact. Suppose I were to tell her, "When I sit next to you, hon, time stands still." That's pretty good, right? Kind of hokey. She'd probably wonder what I wanted. Suppose I changed the wording just a little bit and said, "Sweetheart, your face would stop a clock." Now that's time standing still. Kind of, sort of, isn't it? Now, why am I saying that? To illustrate the power of using the right word at the right time. You ever been in a business where you sensed that you weren't even close to being on the same page in communication? And that they weren't even trying to be on the same page in communication? UPS is the wonderful organization that it is because you make a fervent attempt to communicate effectively. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Whether it's in the sales process or whether it's in the problem-solving process of service. And by the way, sales is problem-solving, is it not? It's all problem-solving. There is nothing more vital to the process, whether in sales or service, than saying what we mean in just the right words so that the person we're speaking to understands what is up here, so that what is up here gets out here into that person's mind and, in the best scenario, into their heart, so that they become loyal customers. Isn't that what we're all looking for? We don't want one-timers. Oh, we want them, But we want the one-timers to become every-timers. And that takes reaching their hearts as well as their minds. I would suggest to you, if there's ever any concern about whether we're communicating effectively, just ask the receiver, what did you understand me to just say? Because I don't always say what is up here clearly. What did you understand me to just say? And you know what? People respond favorably to that because what they see in that kind of a question is a wonderful four-letter word. C-A-R-E. People care. Let me give you some words that are absolutely correct. This is a short course in human relations. This is a short course in sales and service. The 6 most important words. I admit I made a mistake. Oh, by the way, without adding but. Just I admit I made a mistake. Now, if you're thinking, I don't want people that answer to me to think I make mistakes, do you think they don't already know it? I admit I made a mistake. 5 most important words. You did a good job. 4 most important words. I'm proud of you. Those of us who have significant others, you want to make their day, text that to them. I'm proud of you. Text it to your fellow partners. I'm proud of you. Where would this company be without you? Where would this office be? Where would this division be? Where would this region be without you? 3 most important words, if you please. 2 most important words, thank you. 1 most important word, we. 1 least important word, you want to guess? I. And that seems to be the one we use the most, right? You ever been around someone that you could describe them as being knee-deep in conversation? Not knee-deep, they're me-deep in conversation. Gets old in a hurry, doesn't it? But we can all fall into that trap. Well, I said that there are 2 elements to the communicative process. Effective communication and listening. That's another thing. Oh, scared me there for a minute. I thought I was the only one. That kind of dates me just a little bit. You kind of have to be, well, anyway. Let's put it this way. I would a whole lot rather be a young 65 than an old 25. So I'm okay to be 65, and I'm okay to remember Art Linkletter. Art Linkletter had a television show called The House Party. Now, I mention this for this reason. He would have kids, little kids on like bar stools, 3 or 4 kids, and he would ask them questions. From that came his book, Kids Say the Darndest Things. And they did. They said amazing things on there. One day, Art had a little boy on there. And he walked up to him, and this was kind of the way he would do. In turn, he would just converse with them. And he walked up to this little boy. He said, hi. The little boy said, hi. He said, what's your name, young man? He said, Tommy. He said, what do you want to be when you grow up, Tommy? He said, an airplane pilot. He said, that's good, Tommy. Want to play a game? Tommy's eyes got wide. He said, sure, yeah. He said, okay, you want to be an airplane pilot. Let's pretend that you are an airplane pilot, Tommy. Is that okay? He said, yeah. He said, now you're a pilot on a plane, you're flying across the ocean, and you have 200 passengers on board. Can you see that? He said, yes, sir. He said, and while you're flying these 200 passengers over the ocean, you're the pilot, you're responsible for all of them, and your engines quit. You understand what that means, Tommy? He said, yes, sir. He said, okay. So you're the pilot, you have 200 passengers, and the engines quit. What are you going to do? Everything got quiet for a moment, and then Tommy said, well, first of all, I would put on the fasten seatbelt sign. Makes sense, right? And then he said, and then I would parachute out. Seems logical, I guess. Well, you know what? Art was a master listener, a master communicator. The studio audience roared with laughter. Art never took his eyes off of that little boy. And he noticed that tears formed in the corners of his eye and started trailing down his cheeks. And Art said, well, son, why would you parachute out? And Tommy replied, well, to go get fuel, of course. Now that's the rest of the story. That's the rest of the story that no one would have gotten had Art not been the effective communicator that he was. That boy could have been on his way home with his parents still crying, saying, I was going to say, and they didn't give me a chance, I was going to tell them why I would parachute out. What's the story that others are trying to tell us that we never hear? The person who is angry today may not be angry at you or me at all. We may just happen to be the cat they're kicking today. What are they trying to tell us? Listening often gets the real story. Successful organizations are built not just by talkers, but by good listeners. People who say exactly what they mean what they say. They do what they say they will do, when they say they will do it, in the manner in which they said they would do it. By the way, that's integrity. But they also listen, 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 until the other person is through. That's effective communication. Second thing I want to look at with you, and we need to move on very quickly, has to do with enthusiasm. That's a good word, right? Everybody likes the word. We're enthused. We need more enthusiasm around here. We only hire enthusiastic people. Boy, that's a great word. I find that more people like the word than like being enthusiastic. You ever notice that? There are lots of words like that. Optimism is one of those words. People talk about being optimistic, and sometimes the most negative person in the world loves that word. More people fail for lack of enthusiasm than anything else that I know of. You know, a lot of people are what I like to call LIFO people. That stands for last in the door, first out the door at the end of the day. I had a friend many years ago, he owned an engineering firm. I asked him one day, I said, George, how many people do you have working for you? He said, oh, about half of them. Reminds me of the fellow, somebody asked him, how long you been working here? He said, I'll tell you exactly how long. Ever since the day they threatened to fire me. It's a lack of enthusiasm. What are we talking about on enthusiasm? I think sometimes we confuse enthusiasm and excitement. Some time ago, I saw a billboard near the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. It was advertising a national bank. And the billboard said, enthusiasm runs rampant in bank lobbies. Now, my mind runs rampant sometimes in strange directions. And you know the imagery that came to my mind? Is that when you walked into their branch banks, you would see the branch manager, the loan officers, the new accounts people, and all the tellers. They're wearing little party hats and blowing on party favors and throwing confetti in the air because excitement runs rampant. And what the billboard said, it didn't say excitement. It said enthusiasm. And there's a difference. Excitement is an emotional response to circumstances. It's temporary and circumstantial. Enthusiasm is attitudinal, and it can last through all sorts of circumstances. To me, the best illustration of the difference between enthusiasm and excitement is I'm excited right now. I was enthused after I talked to Nick last week, which enthusiasm caused me to spend hours in the office getting ready for what I would be excited about doing right now. Enthusiasm is a fire in the belly. It's a belief in ourselves. It's a belief in the validity and the value of what we're doing. It's that fire in the belly, that sense of dedication and devotion that carried you through, can I say, a horrible December? You got to believe in what you're doing. You got to believe in yourself to do that. You know, every time somebody explained to me about a UPS package didn't get where it's supposed to go yet, I wanted to scream at them, have you been watching this? Why don't you come up here, if you're able to get here, to Dallas and see what it's like in this area? Do you know what's going on? Thank you for what you did. Really, truly, give ourselves a round of applause. It takes commitment. It takes dedication to service. You got to believe in what you're doing. I've always thought that if a person doesn't believe in what they're doing, perhaps they should find something else to do. That life is just too short. Well, we've what enthusiasm is. I want to mention a couple of things that will kill enthusiasm and one thing that will ignite enthusiasm. We like coffee, a lot of it. She said, okay. She said, would you like anything to eat? I said, well, you know, my wife and son are up in the room. They're going to come down after a while. We're going to do the buffet. So I don't want much to eat right now. I said, why don't you bring me a Danish? I'll have that with my coffee. She said, what kind of Danish? I said, well, it just so happens cheese Danishes are my very favorite. And then she said something I never will forget. What she said was, I'll go see if we have cheese Danishes. Okay. But normally, when we have cheese Danishes, now listen to this, when we have cheese Danishes, management doesn't like for us to tell people that we have them. Because when we tell them, we sell out too fast. I thought I had just been beamed down from the Starship Enterprise. What? What? You know, I've thought about that a lot since, and you know what I've decided? I've decided that the manager had an ordering system in place and he didn't want to mess with it. This is the way that's done, and when we run out, we run out. I don't want to change the system, so don't sell out too fast. It's better to have customers upset later on than right off the bat if you sell out too fast, I guess. Now, what's wrong with this story and this philosophy? I'll tell you what's wrong with it. And that is they had a manager that forgot why they were in business. We're in business for people. Friend, if we don't have people, we don't have a business. Now, you may be thinking, well, you got to make money. Do you know some way to make money without people? I haven't found that way yet. We've got to have people. And when people get caught up in red tape and bureaucratic regulations and rules and forget about people, you know what happens to enthusiasm? I'm confident that there are more rules and regulations that govern UPS than I can begin to imagine. And I feel for you. I do. Because I don't like rules and regulations in my life. But when we forget what we're here for, no matter what we do, when we forget that we're here for others, you know what happens to enthusiasm? Somebody said, well, if I'm here for others, what are the others here for? Be that as it may, enthusiasm comes from feeling that we're rendering a service. And by the way, someone has said service to others is the rent we pay for living on. When we forget that, and we get caught up in bureaucratic red tape and systems and procedures, we lose our enthusiasm, we lose our fire, we lose our purpose is the problem. Ronald Reagan said the number one job of a bureaucracy is to maintain the bureaucracy. Well, that's not our number one job, is it? No, sir. No, sir. Our job is serving people. And by the way, there are a lot of people who would be in a world of hurt without you. I don't have to tell you that, you know that. The health care industry, the automobile industry, the retail industry, and you could just go on and on. Be proud of what you do for our country. I congratulate you for it. Be enthused about that. Go the second mile, even as you have. Continue to go the second mile. You know, the fast lane is the second mile because there's so few people on it. Just said, no, I don't think we can do that. I said, really? She said, no, that's for our guests. I said, yes, ma'am, I understand. By the way, I wasn't dressed like a bum. I was cleaned up and everything, kind of like I am now. I said, yes, ma'am, I understand that. I'm willing to pay you for that. No, I don't think we can do that. But I'll call the owner and ask him. So she did. When she got through talking to him with a great deal of delight, she was able to say that she was right. And that they could not sell me a buffet. It was for their guests. I said, okay. Okay. Two types of people you don't want to write all there. I said, okay, that's fine. I'm okay with that. So I sat down, I started reading my Kindle. And I thought, well, a cup of coffee would be nice. They had a coffee pot sitting over there. You're not going to believe this. I went back up to the counter. I said, well, I'd sure like a cup of coffee. Let me buy a cup of coffee from you. No, that's for our guests. Now, I want to tell you something. At JB's Barbershop, which was named after my uncle and which I bought in 1993, we had an old-time soda machine, close to being an antique. Had the coldest sodas in South Texas in that machine. We gave sodas away every day. Had a sign over the machine that says, help yourself to a free soda. And this poor, ignorant woman couldn't sell me a cup of coffee. Most places would say, oh, help yourself. Over there, my word. Anytime we're afraid of doing too much for someone else, you can be sure that everyone in our environment, everyone in our circle of influence will lose their enthusiasm. Every time that will happen. Let me mention very briefly how we can inspire enthusiasm. Just one way. There are many ways, but I just have time for one, and I think it's friendship built upon kind words of encouragement. I'm proud of you. Boy, you came through for me there. We really pulled together, didn't we? It's said that star athletes will remember longer not the winning touchdown or the winning basket that they made. They will remember longer who was on the team that they struggled and were victorious with. Relationships matter. And relationships are built upon encouragement and kind words. Third thing, I've talked about communication, I've talked about enthusiasm. Let's talk about a sense of humor. As you probably have already been able to tell, I don't have one. I love a good story. There's not anything I like better than a good story. And I think we live in a society in which people take themselves far too seriously. I believe that. Now, I do believe in taking what we do seriously. I take what I do as a speaker very seriously. But I don't take myself seriously. That's a mistake. We need to be able to laugh, lighten up, enjoy life. There are so many benefits to having a good sense of humor and lightening up on ourselves and lightening up on others and lightening up on life and enjoying life. Did you realize that humor is one of these in terms of people and in terms of not taking ourselves so seriously, enjoying life? Humor is so easy. All we have to do is take the focus off of ourselves and think about others and see life. Life is funny. Every day I see funny things. Share those things with others. Have a laugh with others. Say, you know what I saw today? You're not going to believe this. And lighten their life. I'm going to tell one story and then I'll be through. But before I do that, let me say that I would love to visit with you when I get through. If you want to visit outside, I'll visit just as long as you want to talk, and we'll do that. If you want to sign up for my newsletter, Sarah, my agent, will have a notepad. You can put your name and email address there, or you can leave a business card. I send out a monthly newsletter on leadership. If you want to buy a book, I'm out. I'm sorry about that. But you could leave a business card and tell me that's what you want to do, and we can make arrangements. Or you can download it to your Kindle or e-reader. But today I'll autograph that for you. How's that? You'll be the only person in your organization that has an autographed Kindle, right? All right. Okay. It's been fun. I want to end with this story. And that is that if we're going to use stories, there's a way to tell them. There's a way not to tell them. You know, you ever run across somebody that they talk for an hour and then they'll say, well, make a long story short. You want to say, man, you missed that opportunity an hour ago. Every story that we tell ought to have a point, and we need to get to it. The longer the story, the better the point better be. Otherwise, people feel cheated, right? It's like, you wasted my time there. If we're going to tell something funny, it always helps also to remember the punchline. Heard of a young preacher. He had a mentor that this old preacher used to tell a story about motherhood. He would extol the virtues of his sainted mother. He would say, I spent many a pleasant hour in the arms of another man's wife. And then he would pause for effect. And then the old preacher would say, my mother. That's kind of neat, isn't it? Young preacher thought that was a good story. So he got up and just out of the blue one Sunday, he said, I just want you good folks to know in the congregation that I've spent many a pleasant hour in the arms of another man's wife. And then he forgot the punchline. He said, it's true. He's trying to think now. It's true, I've spent many a pleasant hour in the arms of another man's wife. And then kind of under his breath he said, and for the life of me, I can't remember who it was. So it helps to remember the punchline. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Speaking with us. Jared and Sophia have a little something for you as a token of appreciation.